Eleanor de Medici was the daughter of Francesco I de Medici and Joanna of Austria, daughter of Ferdinand I, Holy Roman Emperor, and Anna of Bohemia and Hungary. She was a family member of the famous House of Medici and the sister of Marie de Medici, the Queen of France. By marriage she was Duchess consort of Mantua. Early life. Eleanor, born Eleonora, was born in Florence, Tuscany, Italy, on the 28th of February 1567, as the eldest child of Francesco I de Medici and his first wife Archduchess Joanna. Her baptism took place the same year and was attended by Cardinal Innocenzo Sarchi del Monte, an adoptive nephew of Pope Julius III. Cardinal Spinello de' Benci performed the ceremony on behalf of Pope Pius V. The baptism was celebrated also with hunting excursions and parties. It was at first believed Eleanor would marry Francis, Duke of Anjou, son of Henry II of France and Catherine de' Medici. In 1570 it was feared Eleanor had contracted smallpox, but this was not the case. She had only a fever from which she recovered. Her parents and grandfather Cosimo sent her flasks of holy water as she recovered from her illness. In 1574, when Eleanor was 7 years of age, her father Cosimo died, therefore, her father became Grand Duke of Florence. In 1578, when Eleanor was 11, her mother died, and her father later married Bianca Capello. Medici was one of 7 children. One of her sisters, Marie de Medici, became Queen of France and was the mother of Louis XIII of France. Eleanor and Marie had another sister, Anna, who died at the age of 14. Eleanor wrote to her father on behalf of the dying Anna, who wished to see her father. Anna died that same day. The rest of Eleanor and Marie's siblings died during childhood also. Marriage, wedding and celebrations. Medici married Vincenzo I Gonzaga on the 29th of April 1584. For her husband it was his second marriage after he divorced Margherita Farnese. Celebrations for the marriage contract being signed on the 4th of April 1584 took place in Mantua, including bells ringing and fireworks being set off. 8 days after the celebrations, the couple traveled to Florence to meet Eleanor's father, Grand Duke Francesco, and her stepmother, Bianca Capello. At this point, Vincenzo kept a portrait of Eleanor by his bed. On April 10, Francesco sent a letter to Philip II of Spain asking for permission so that Eleanor and Vincenzo could be married. However, Francesco also wished for proof of his son-in-law's fertility before concluding marriage negotiations. On the 3rd of May 1584, Eleanor arrived in Mantua. After arriving by boat, Eleanor disembarked at Mileto and was accompanied to Palazzo Te by Ottavio Farnese, Duke of Parma, her husband Vincenzo, as well as many noblemen and women from Piacenza, Parma, and Mantua. After resting at Palazzo Te, Eleanor changed into a silver brocade dress with many jewels and made her entry into the city to salvos of arquebuses and artillery while riding in a semi-uncovered gilded carriage pulled by 4 white horses and accompanied by the Mantuan military. Mounted arquebusiers, light cavalry, noblemen and women in carriages. After arriving at the Castello di San Giorgio, she proceeded to the Palatine Church of Santa Barbara and the Ducal Palace, where she was greeted at the foot of the stairs by Duke and Duchess of Mantua Guglielmo Gonzaga and Eleanor of Austria. After a meal she was accompanied by Cardinals Gianfrancesco Gambara and Giovanni Vincenzo Gonzaga di Guastalla by boat to Palazzo Te, where she was visited by Cardinal Alessandro Farnese and Duke of Parma. Married life. Eleanor initially had several portraits commissioned to be made of her deceased mother Joanna as well as her deceased siblings Anna and Filippo, but was unhappy with the length of time taken to paint the portraits. On the 7th of May 1586, Eleanor gave birth to her first child, a son named Francesco. During the pregnancy, her father sent her a present of some plums. The following year, Eleanor's father-in-law Guglielmo died, therefore Vincenzo became Duke of Mantua whilst Eleanor served as his Duchess consort. The same year, she gave birth to a second son, Ferdinando, after a difficult pregnancy. In the next several years, Eleanor had further children. Firstly, a son, Guglielmo Domenico, in 1589, who died young. Then in 1591 a daughter named Margherita, who married Henry II, Duke of Lorraine, followed by a son named Vincenzo in 1594, who succeeded his older brothers. She then suffered a miscarriage in 1596, 4 months into pregnancy, and in 1598 she finally gave birth to a second daughter, also named Eleanor, who married Ferdinand II, Holy Roman Emperor. In October 1600, Eleanor attended the wedding of her sister Marie to Henry IV of France. In 1601, Queen Marie gave birth to her first child and son, the future Louis XIII of France. Marie made her sister Eleanor the godmother of the child. In 1602, Vincenzo traveled to Flanders in search of medical treatment. He left Eleanor in control of the duchy. In this time she sent Ferdinando I de Medici a list of men condemned to the galleys. In the letter she informed Ferdinando of her post whilst her husband was away. During the winter of 1603 to 1604, Galileo visited the Mantuan court in an effort to obtain a position there, and was offered a salary, but could not agree on the terms with Vincenzo, who instead presented Galileo with a gold chain and 2 silver dishes. In 1606, Eleanor accompanied her daughter Margherita to Lorraine for her marriage to Duke Henry. Death and funeral. Eleanor fell ill in the first quarter of 1611 with a prolonged illness, but seemed to recover by April. Months later, Eleanor retired for 2 months to the Palazzo di Porto in Porto Mantovano, 1 mile from the city and beautiful for its gardens and fresh water. With the arrival of hotter weather, Eleanor moved north to the hilltop fortified villa at Cavriana. There, on the day after the feast of the birth of the Virgin, her health rapidly declined and died on the 9th of September 1611, aged 44. At the time of her death, her husband Duke Vincenzo was in Casal Monferrato. Her husband outlived her by only 1 year, dying in 1612. After her death, Eleanor's body was placed in a lead casket, and accompanied by numerous priests from the outlying towns, to the parish church of Cavriana, where she lay in state for 2 days. Next, her body was transported to Mantua on a cart draped with black fabric, and pulled by 6 horses caparisoned in black and accompanied by 12 priests on horseback, and 12 foot attendants bearing burning torches, and followed by 12 carriages carrying members of the Gonzaga family, and 12 carts, also covered in black. Eleanor's body was then taken to the Court Vecchia, where her body was deposited to await the return of Vincenzo. When Duke Vincenzo returned to Mantua on the 3rd of October 1611, plans were made for Eleanor's funeral to be held on the feast of St. Francesco. During this interim period, her body was placed upon a beautiful catafalque resplendent with many candles that had been specially constructed in the aforementioned aforementioned oratory, and accompanied by priests from Santa Barbara and tertiary nuns from the city's major churches. The funerary functions were performed by the Bishop of Casale, since the Bishop of Mantua, Annibal Gonzaga di Bozzolo, was ill. The procession on foot that accompanied Eleanor's body from the oratory in the Court Vecchia to Sant'Andrea was led by the gonfalone of the principal church and followed in order by members of the city's various civic and religious institutions, including the Misericordia, the city's various hospitals, schools, and churches, ancestry,